Once again, welcome to this hall and thank you very much. First and foremost, let me thank Indian Council of Scientific Research as well as Gandhi Research Foundation, especially Geeta ji who has invited me, and I have this privilege of speaking in front of you. Before I begin my presentation, let's take some poll and I'll have one explanation and one apology to submit in front of you. Which language do I talk in? English. So can I just have raise of hands to English? I can also speak in Marathi, that's my mother tongue, but if need be I can get into that. Okay. हिंदी मेरी राष्ट्रभाषा तो है, लेकिन अगर मैं हिंदी में बात करने की चेष्टा करूं तो मराठी की चेष्टा हो जाती है. मतलब इतनी हिंदी अच्छी बात नहीं कर पाता मैं, तो शायद हिंदी में थोड़ी बात वार्तालाप करने की कोशिश करूं मैं, लेकिन अगर कुछ गलती है तो फिर माफ़ कर दीजिए. I have one explanation and one apology. I think Girish ji told you that I am going to almost open up the new world to you of the Indian architecture, traditional architecture, which is referred as Vastu Shastra, one of the most abused word in the architectural scenario of this current world. And I am going to talk to you about it, but one apology that I am not going to give answers. I am planning to raise questions, more questions than answers, because this is an unexplored, uncharted area. मैं हिंदी में भी बात करूंगा बीच बीच में. अच्छा, ठीक है. नहीं, मैंने बात ओके, शुक्रिया. मैंने बात इतनी की कि मैं मेरे प्रेजेंटेशन के थ्रू उत्तर कम और प्रश्न ज़्यादा खड़े करूंगा, क्योंकि ये वास्तुशास्त्र या पारंपरिक विद्या जो है, जिससे हम 60-70 या ऑलमोस्ट 300 साल दूर जा चुके हैं, जो 1800 सदी में हमारी मुख्य धारा थी, वहाँ से हम टूट के बिखर चुके हैं. एंड हमें लगता है कि अगर हम आयुर्वेद, वास्तुशास्त्र और किसी की भी बात करें तो शायद हम पिछड़े हैं, हम पीछे जा रहे हैं. जो जग की धारा है, जिसको हम प्रोग्रेस बोलते हैं, उससे बिछड़ के हम पीछे जा रहे हैं. आई थिंक इसका खंडन करना ये मेरा पहला आयाम है इस मंच का. सो आई ट्राई टू डू दैट. मैं थोड़ा इंग्लिश और थोड़ा हिंदी बात करूँगा. जब भी समझ में ना आए आप हाथ ऊपर कर देना, मैं कोशिश करूँगा कि आपसे बात करूँ. ठीक है. So what is this all about? I am saying मंथन, अंडरस्टैंडिंग ट्रेडिशनल आर्किटेक्चर, भारतीय वास्तुकला को समझना. वास्तुकला, वास्तुशास्त्र, ये दो शब्द बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है इसमें. वन, एक जगह पे हम शास्त्र बोलते हैं, विच इज वेरी सिनोनिमस विथ साइंस, बट इट इज नॉट लिमिटेड टू साइंस. साइंस इज अ वेरी लिमिटेड स्कोप ऑफ स्टडी. पहले तो ये समझ ले कि साइंस जो हम प्राइमरली वेस्टर्न साइंस बोलते हैं या साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी बोलते हैं, वे बहुत ही लिमिटेड दृष्टिकोण है, बहुत लिमिटेड स्कोप है. जहाँ हम शास्त्र की बात करते हैं वो उससे परे है, उससे बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा है. और उसकी थोड़ी सी दरवाज़ा खिलखिला करके मैं आपको झलक दिखाने की कोशिश करूँगा यहाँ पे, और कुछ प्रश्न उत्पन्न करूँगा जिसमें, जैसे वैभव जी बोल रहे थे कि काम मुश्किल तो है, लेकिन मुझे दिख रहा है कि देयर आर मेनी यंग माइंड्स आउट हियर, एंड आई एम यूजिंग माइंड्स वेरी पर्टिकुलरली because many times then it will be seen as young people that are in front of me, mostly leftist as I can see them from my side, but still there are many young minds that I can see, and I am trying to only question them and to make them wonder about our heritage. और उसके बारे में हम अगर कुछ प्रश्नों के उत्तर खोज करना चाहते हैं तो लाइफ टाइम भी कम है, लेकिन शुरुआत तो करनी पड़ेगी. ओके, विद दैट आई विल स्टार्ट माय प्रेजेंटेशन. So this is of course very related to this term of how Gandhi comes alive. I think it's a very apt stage जहाँ पे ये बात मैं कर रहा हूँ कि हमारी परंपरा की, जो शायद 70-80 साल पहले गांधी जी चीख के चिल्ला के कर रहे थे, हमने उनको एक दीवार में ऊपर बिठा दिया, उनकी पूजा करना चालू किया और वहाँ पे वो समाप्त हो गए फ्रॉम द लार्जर सोसाइटी. Of course, there are very few and very good people who are still following that path, but it is unfortunately remained to a very small thing. And this is an area also very similar that I have graduated from Sir J. J. College of Architecture in 1992. And today, even if I utter that I am working on Vastu Shastra and my architects friend will support me out there, that 90% of our professionals or architects will raise their eyebrows. ये क्या पागलपंती होगी आपको, क्या मतलब क्या सोचिए, क्यों जा रहे हो? And I think for last 10 years, my research tells me that that was the wrongest thing to do, that we never uttered word Vastu Shastra in our curriculum, nor we are attempting it in our current curriculum as well. And at this time, we have started some aspects there. We are teaching in one of the architectural school as for the masters, which is purely for traditional knowledge systems. And I think, how many of you know that IIT Kharagpur has a center now called as IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems? IIT Kharagpur was the first IIT, okay, that has established Indian Knowledge System as a center, and they hope to become a department to offer courses within another 5 years. So, I think it's a great change. Again, second explanation, that when I say paramparik, it doesn't mean antithesis of progressive. Okay, that is very important thing that one has to understand. कि अगर मैं पारंपरिक ऐसे शब्द उच्चार करूँ, इसका मतलब आधुनिकता के विरोध में हूँ या आधुनिकता का विरोध करता हूँ, ऐसी बिल्कुल बात नहीं है. रादर ये बाइनरी विजन ऑफ वर्ल्ड हमने त्यागनी चाहिए, क्योंकि हम जो बोलते अगर ये अच्छा है तो बुरा नहीं है, अगर बुरा है तो अच्छा नहीं है. Everything in life is always mix of grey. We have to say that this is one system, this is another system. We have to keep our eyes open to both and try to chart our paths for our future, and that is my first submission. So, this is still a khoj of our dharohar, which is our ancient history or rich heritage, whatever you may call it. So, I am saying that first let us ask some questions. कुछ प्रश्न पूछे, ये कहाँ का है कुछ पता है, मैंने शायद थोड़ा सा हिंट दिया है. This is Hampi, clicked by me. Of course, it's a close up and a long shot together. Can you see the intricate carving on the stone? In front of the left hand side, and you see a tall structure which is almost falling apart, which is the Gopuram, the entrance of this temple. What is your first exclamation or first reaction to this photograph? Anything? Does it stir your emotions? कहीं कुछ लगता है कि कुछ भव्य दिव्य देख रहे हैं, ऐसा लगता है कि जाते जाते और एक स्ट्रक्चर सही, ग्रैंड. ओके, एनीबडी एल्स, एनी पर्टिकुलर रिएक्शन? अरे दूसरे को उद्युक्त करने से अच्छा आप बताओ. ये तो हमारी भारतीय मानसिकता है कि कुछ पूछा तो अरे तू बोल तू बोल. व्हाट इज इट? आई मीन वी आर ऑल देयर टू स्पीक एंड वी मस्ट स्पीक बिकॉज दैट्स द ओनली वे दैट वी कैन रीच आउट टू ईच अदर and build the team that Vaibhavji was indicating. Otherwise, we will never be able to build that. So, anything, any exclamations? Stone canopy है. ये जो है वो एक्चुअली स्टोन कैनोपी नहीं है, वो छोटा ब्रैकेट है. क्लोजअप लिया है तो स्टोन कैनोपी लग रही है. बट लुक एट द स्टोन, such a massive structure to such small delicate thing, almost looks like fragile. बहुत नाजुक काम दिख रहा है. पत्थर में क्या हुआ है, ग्रेनाइट में क्या हुआ है. CNC मशीन तो नहीं थे वहां पे. इट शोज हार्डशिप. एनीथिंग एल्स? वर्कमैनशिप. कैन यू से दैट दे वर एक्सलेंट स्किल्ड पीपल देयर? कैन एनी वन ऑफ अस मैच दिस एवर? Very rare, very few are left nowadays who can match this. There are still people like that, but I might tell you. And we treat them as laborers. We say that, oh, they are the last rung of this life, just earning daily wages of 300, 400 or 500 if they are lucky per day. And who could do this, which we cannot match. And we sit here in this auditorium and say, we are the charters of the progress. We are the people who will lead this country to the fullest and the topmost. We are fifth now as far as the statistics goes. Whether it is true, false, I don't care, but we seem to have potential, and we seem to have potential which is untapped traditions out here. So, I am saying this, let us ask some questions. There are some theories which are professed. all that is Western is progressive. जो वेस्ट में हुआ है वही प्रोग्रेस है. I'm not saying that they are not progressive. I'm just saying that is not only progressive. Understand every word. हर एक शब्द महत्वपूर्ण है कि वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड ने प्रोग्रेस नहीं किया है क्या? बहुत ज़्यादा प्रोग्रेस किया है. सिर्फ उसी को प्रोग्रेस माने क्या? ये प्रश्न है. So first is that the Western world is very progressive and great technology is needed to achieve great buildings. Now, if we had that kind of great machinery, tools, system, something would have been there today to see it. So it was a daily labor's work with mostly hand tools. Of course, we do not know for sure, but mostly hand tools. They could create this. That means there is some folly, कुछ contradiction है यहाँ पे कि अच्छी बिल्डिंग और बड़ी बिल्डिंग और एडिफिसेस बनाने के लिए अच्छी टेक्नोलॉजी की ज़रूरत होती है. शायद अच्छे आदमियों की ज़रूरत होती है. शायद गुड ह्यूमन स्किल इज़ रिक्वायर्ड मोर दैन machines, because machines will never be able to recreate or think the same fashion. तो इसकी ज़रूरत है कि हम पहले करेक्ट एनालिसिस करें. थर्ड इज़ formal education is extremely critical for growth and progress, and all who do not have it unfortunately are backward. Just question, think about it, ponder on it, question yourself, is that a correct depiction? Because that only makes sure to make the entire India literate, which is able to read and write, not necessarily think. And most of us are thinking right from our childhood. Unfortunately, maybe most of our formal education kills it. But formal education is not the only way. That is of course one of the way. We cannot deny that, but that's not the only way. So the question is about the theory and assumptions. And that the India was living in dark periods before British, blah blah blah. We had extreme poverty. हम सबसे गरीब देश था. Somebody talked about 28 as a GDP, 28% of the entire world, and all sorts of things. We did not have any new technology. We were downtrodden people who were illiterate, who could not do anything. We had no education. Do we all believe this? I mean, we see this, and I am going to show you a few images of our great edifices, great buildings that our ancestors have done over centuries, and we still have accepted these norms almost without questioning them, haven't we? We all believe that progress of India started sometimes when British came. They brought us education, they brought us railway, they brought us postal systems. No denial. And I am not going into polity or political argument here. I am just trying to see, does that mean that we were not able to do anything of this sort? Or we would have been left nowhere if they never came and ruled us? That is the question. So the question is to ask, do we have or do we believe that we have a rich history and culture? How many of you do? That we have a rich culture and history, richest culture. And why do you do it? Why do you believe that? We are still struggling with bread and butter today. As Vaibhavji rightly said, that if we want to achieve that, there is huge, humongous amount of work that is needed. So is it just a dream that we have, that we had rich culture, or do we have some kind of belief system there? Or just because I am now questioning you, said, हाँ must be, होगा शायद. पता नहीं. आपका क्या कहना है? Anybody has any answers to this? Or do I have a statement? Can you raise hands that we surely believe that we had? Then can we start investigating? Have you ever investigated that? Hardly, isn't it? We talked about the entire history books, unfortunately talk about the invasions that we had and maybe what we got out of those invasions, as if we didn't lose anything. So surely for all these answers of, if we say that we had rich history and we say that at the same time we believe that we were not good enough to be the progressive or leaders of this world, there is a contradiction there. And if you have ever read an author called Ayn Rand, a very famous author who has written quite interesting works fictional as well as philosophical. She has a very interesting statement which I like every time. Ki contradictions never exist. If you see contradiction, check your premise. Contradictions कभी भी होते नहीं. अगर कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी कुछ सामने आए हैं तो हमें प्रश्न पूछना पड़ेगा कि हमारी बिलीव्स सही है या गलत है, हम जिसके ऊपर चल रहे हैं वो सही राह है या गलत है. That is the first question that you have to ask. Unfortunately, we are in a rat race. We are not stopping to ask and pausing. We are talking about GDP. आप कितने को लगता है कि GDP एक ही मायना है जो काउंट करता है as progress of any nation? Unfortunately, we believe that. पास आउट होने के बाद क्या पैकेज मिला? Isn't that what people will talk about in the colleges? I come from a profession where the package is non-existent when they graduate and they have to make their own life. Maybe it helps in a way, but that's the only thing that we are looking at. Have you heard that Bhutan is one of the most happiness indexes, one of the highest, most of the happy people around? Where does that happiness come from? Only from money? I'm not saying money is bad or money is evil, nothing of that sort. Don't look at me ever as propagating one side of it. I am saying that are we thinking enough is the only thing that I want to talk about. Okay? So we have to look at that history, and of course if we look back in our history in recent 100 years, one person stands out who stood by these virtues irrespective of everybody else around him, be it Indian politicians at that time, of course British rulers and the world. He stood, and that's why he is revered across the world. And unfortunately we have just kept him on one side 1 hour, and that's about it. The rest of the stage is actually empty because we do not follow his thoughts. So we have to understand that he was talking about the same things. Unfortunately we understood it otherwise. गांधीजींनी सांगितलं होतं की खेड्याकडे चला, look towards rural India, look towards villages. Unfortunately, all of us from the cities and educated class felt, oh, that means they need us. We need to take our technology. I am working for a few planning exercises in Maharashtra. We are developing some clusteral plans for 56 villages. I have done something for other government agencies also. The whole attitude is, उनको sanitation नहीं है, उनको पानी नहीं है, उनको कचरा है, ये सब देना पड़ेगा गाँव में. As if we are the saviors of this rural India, which we hardly know. And Gandhiji said the same thing, that you have to know them, not to save them, but to learn from them. There's lots to learn from ancestors, and those traditions are still alive in our rural India to a certain extent. If we go back with very open mind, without saying that we are in the ivory tower looking at them as downtrodden or backward, कुछ चीज़ें बदल सकती है. जब तक हम ये रवैया नहीं बदलेंगे कि हम जानते हैं, और हम जानते हैं कहाँ से, as Vaibhav ji rightly said, from whatever is coming from West, 90% is what our belief system is. That is the best thing to happen to this world. And they are realizing that that is not going to sustain anymore at all. They are looking for us to answers. So if we have to become leaders, we have to know our own history and we have to know our own potential. Shouldn't we? What do you think? चाय का असर थोड़ा कम होते दिखाई दे रहा है मुझे. चाय पी थी तब तो चेहरे और मन उल्लासित था, अभी थोड़ा थोड़ा. Is it? Or you are still alive? Alive? Yes? Okay, good, great. So we'll have to look back, and don't look at it as regressive or taking backward turn. Let's look at it as something that we have missed on the way of running towards idea of progress for last 100 years or so, and surely not last 75 years after independence. We were independent, but we hardly were thinking as independent. We are still dependent mentally. If we break these bondages, I think half of the answers would come very quickly. As I said, I am not giving answers, I am only raising questions. So then let's try to see how these seemingly impossible feats were achieved by our ancestors. I am going to give you a little bit of indication of where to look for, not necessarily answers, but surely what made this easily possible. Let's search for these answers is what I am trying to say. I have written, so there is no question of identifying. This is Brihadeshwara at Tanjore. one of the very renowned structure which has been analyzed, and there are, if you are on WhatsApp, इसके बारे में बीच बीच में थियरीज आती जाती है कि वो कैसे बनाया होगा, 2.5 टन का ऊपर का पिनाकल स्टोन है, कैसे ऊपर लेके गए होंगे. सो देयर आर थियरीज विच टॉक अबाउट लार्ज रैम्प which was built from where the elephants were pulling it till the top, because that's what Western world knows. They do not know our construction system. There was a very simple construction system that was adopted right from temples to this large structure. Of course, technology, the efforts were much more needed when you used to build that, and I am going to come to this. Something which is very close to you, Kailash temple. I am just killing that word, Ellora. It's not again political. Let's understand this. Verur is the name. Somebody could not pronounce it. They pronounce it as Ellora, and now we feel Ellora is one of the best thing. I'll give you this very simple example. If I say that there are quite few students and quite few students at heart, I can see. So you say that for achieving success, you need lots of perseverance and practice. Does it seem very nice statement? If I say, आपको यश मिलने के लिए साधना करनी पड़ेगी. How do you react to this word sadhana? ये क्या है? It's the same translation of perseverance and efforts. उसी का शब्द साधना है, but साधना हमें लगता है कि अरे वो तो पुराने जमाने के दादाजी करते थे, साधना मैं क्यों करूं? Isn't it? क्योंकि हमने पूजा किसको है? English को. Again, nothing against English. You have to learn, you have to master the language, no doubt about it. It has become world's most spoken and used language for all the works that is happening, and we have to be global. We cannot be संकुचित रह भी नहीं सकते. हम सब के साथ बढ़ना है तो हमें इंग्लिश सीखनी पड़ेगी, उसकी मास्टरी भी करनी पड़ेगी, लेकिन उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम हमारी भाषा भूल जाए या उसके प्रति लज्जा मन में रखे. Okay. Till such a point, as Vaibhavji rightly said, somebody from there will say that Sanskrit is the language, and then we'll start believing it. I think that's the sad thing to happen, isn't it? आबादी क्या है अपने देश की अभी? Total population of world के percentage में अगर बात करें तो, anybody has any idea? I don't have statistics. I am not a statistic man. I run away from numbers. 20%? So if 20% of us decide to do something, will it entirely change the world? Because last 80% is divided into n number of countries, no? Except China, there is no consolidation of population anywhere, such a huge population. So if we think that we can change, and how do we change? We'll have to reconnect, build bridges with our past. Not just because we believe that there was rich, because we can see that there's n number of things been unexplored, kept aside. How many architects here? Have you read a book called Pattern Language, or heard Pattern Language? Have you read it? How many of you have read Mayamatam? Mayamatam? No? Never heard of it? That's the text of Vastu Shastra. Ironically, it's been kept aside without investigation. My problem is only that. I am not saying that is the greatest of the text and all the modern architectural theories are bad. I am just saying that without investigation we have kept it aside and said that, that's thotanda hai, Marathit म्हणतात त्याला. If I am using the, sorry? Mayamatam. Mayamatam हा जास्ती करेक्ट उच्चार आहे त्याचा. मनसारा, आता जसं रामा रावणा, आपण ते संस्कृत राम रावण म्हणायच्या होती रामा रावणा म्हणतो तसं आहे ते थोडंसं, पण उच्चारात फरक आहे, पण मयमतम किंवा मनसारा. सो दिस अगेन देयर आर एक्स्ट्रा टेरेस्ट्रियल थियरीज अबाउट इट ना, कि वन नाइट, एक रात में बनाया गया ये, कोई आके अचानक दैवी शक्ति से ऊपर से नीचे बनाया गया. Somebody said that Kalash was made first and that's how the mandir was complete, which is the right thing to do. But imagine how stupendous work, what kind of confidence वन मस्ट बी हैविंग कि यहाँ चालू करके हम नीचे तक जा सकेंगे और बना सकेंगे पूरा. Now where does that confidence come from? कहाँ से आता होगा ये कॉन्फिडेंस, कहाँ से ये विश्वास आता होगा? पूरा राम भरोसे तो नहीं होगा, नहीं हो सकता. एक्सपीरियंस, yes, experiments on small scale, yes. How many of you can make tea? चाय बना सकते हो कोई? सब कोई हाथ उठाते हैं, यार चाय तो बना सकते हो. अच्छा, मैं अगर एक क्वेश्चन पूछूं कि आप एक चाय की प्याली में कितना ग्राम शक्कर डालते हो यार? नहीं पता? नहीं, ग्राम यार. ओ ग्राम मान्यता प्राप्त वजन है, ग्राम में बताओ मुझे. पक्का या अंदाजे बोल रहे हो? ग्राम ना जानते हुए भी आप अच्छी चाय बना लेते हो? क्यों? You have dealt with that sugar and that powder and water and this yourself. You have indulged into it. You have not read somewhere and just did that. Now, some at first experiences maybe. Now that is how these people knew the materials. They worked with it. They knew in and out as if it's an extension of their own world, as if it's an extension of their personality. The material, stone ho, brick ho, timber ho. That's how the entire working system was. It was never limited to text. Rather text, वास्तु शास्त्र के text शायद 6th century के बाद 9th century तक आ गए. तब तक text नहीं था, मौखिक था. एक दूसरे के साथ बात करके, एक दूसरे के साथ काम करके, बचपन से जनरेशन टू जनरेशन उसी तरीके से शिक्षण हुआ करता था. उस शिक्षण के साथ ये बना पाए. इसमें से एक भी मंदिर हम बना पाएंगे आज, लगता है आपको? As it is. Again, another example. I am not reading all these things. You can read if you are interested, or I can share it with you also later. Because intention of this platform is not to share information. Sharing information we don't need. We have Google now, isn't it? So I am just trying to pinpoint and ask questions. So again, the whole idea was always this was built like this. The temples were built in fashion, especially when they were large. Generally, the Garbhagruha would be built first, filled with sand at times if the spans were larger. They used to construct mud walls around that sanctum, and slowly from lower level, they used to raise the entire stonework from bottom to top. So even that pinnacle would not be kept. That's a Western idea ना कि सब बनाने के बाद ऊपर जाके रखना है. वो पहले है. धीरे 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 ऊपर चढ़ा रहे हैं scaffolding के साथ और of course lever arms के साथ, but a very little at one time and supported by masonry construction और थोड़ा ऊपर चढ़ा लिया और बाद में mud construction वाला scaffolding निकाल दिया. So ये ramp और हाथी, all these are weird ideas coming from a complete Western brain. I am not blaming them, I am just saying that they are not related, so they will think of some ideas because it looks mystical and almost unachievable, like the theories and theories about pyramids, which were not again built by Western world. So again, I maybe keep on saying this just to compare. Just don't take me wrong that there is nothing against Western world. We have been benefited with variety of their inventions. Now it's not only humongous. Again, single stone structure, Shravan Medgore, Gomteshwara. That's almost 4-storied high structure behind, which is actually just 1 story, but that's 4-story equivalent or 4 story, and that high, a little more than that actually. So why would one build this? ऐसा प्रश्न पड़ता है कि पागल थे लोग, क्या बना के रखा, क्यों बनाया इतना बड़ा? क्या लगता है क्यों बनाया होगा? कमीशन किया होगा, पैसे मिलते होंगे, क्या है? सालों बनता रहा है ना, 10, 20, 25 साल, sometimes generations after generations. Would you think they only work for some money that they were getting or living that they were struggling with, or do you think there would be something more than that? कुछ आंतरिक इच्छा भी होगी जिसके कारण ये बन पाया? और आंतरिक इच्छा एक किसी की जो पैसा देने वाला था उसकी नहीं होगी ना, तो नहीं बन पाता शायद। हर एक आदमी या औरत जो यहाँ पे काम कर रही होगी सालों से लगन से, उसका नतीजा है ये। एंड दिस इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक अ पोएट्री ना इन स्टोन, सच अ ब्यूटिफुल स्टैचू, very proportionate, excellent. If you have been there, if you have not been there, I think you should go just to see the scale and extreme accuracy of stone. There is one single stone, just imagine the surface polishing. If you have to polish this size of hall, it's a task. Imagine this on the external at that height and polishing to the perfection, not an ounce more, not an ounce less. यहाँ तो चेयर्स के बीच में चिप जाएगा अगर कुछ डिफेक्ट है तो, वहाँ छिपने की कोई चांस नहीं है. इट्स एक्सपोज्ड and there for generations. Again, this is one of the very good examples. If you have not seen, this is from South India. It's a Nataraj which is 6 feet high. It is a very tall single cast alloy, a combination, now almost unimpeachable, that kind of alloy. I'm just giving you a little bit of what quantum of work it involves. Forget the accuracy and delicacy and the metaphors and the proportions, ये सब तो है ही है, लेकिन सिर्फ बनाने की स्किल और अवधि और सामग्री अगर आप देखें तो मतलब अचंभित करने वाला सीन है. Now there are only two choices to us. We can treat these skills same what we did with Mahatma ji, put it on pedestal, bow it and say that oh मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगा, चलती है. That's the one way of doing it. Or the second is investigate and say that I may not be constructing Nataraja again. I may have some different aspirations now in my current age. I may not be necessarily carving and making statues of idols of मेरे perceptions आज अलग है, मेरी aspirations आज अलग है, लेकिन इस level का कुछ मैं बना पाऊंगा या पाऊंगी या करना चाहूंगा या चाहूंगी, ये एक प्रश्न है. That is where the answers have to be sought. Nobody is saying that we have to make this Nataraja again because it is beautiful. That is at that time dated, good, we should respect. There will be some new challenges, but are we going to meet them, or are we going to be happy that I am able to buy a car at age of 30 and a house or a bungalow at age of 35 and then that's it. So what are our aspirations? That will happen. There is nothing. I have not heard ever that any literate or educated person has died out of hunger. So you will be fed, you will achieve your success as far as monetary is concerned. But what beyond that? Is there any goal beyond that? Is there any inspiration out here? Is there any thought there? Is the question that you need to ask to yourself. No answers from my side. So this is just trying to say that this is not only a skill of making that alloy and casting it at one place, but also a great proportioning system that is inherent, and that's why it is a very dynamic profile, stable at the dynamic at the same time, and it has a story. So this is not only skill, this is also great proportions and understanding geometry, and at the third level it's a representation of an idea, which is also important. एक idea भी represent की हुई है, बहुत अच्छी तरह से ज्योमेट्रिकली रिजॉल्व किए हुए है और अच्छी तरह से एग्जीक्यूट किए हुए. तीन एस्पेक्ट्स है. प्रोडक्ट इज द नटराजा, बट ये तीन एस्पेक्ट्स उतने ही ज़रूरी है अगर आप कुछ भी करना चाहते हो इस ज़िंदगी में, कि बिना थॉट और बिना इन्वॉल्वमेंट के कुछ नहीं बन सकता, बिना स्किल्स के कुछ नहीं बन सकता और बिना नॉलेज के कुछ नहीं बन सकता. ये तीनों चीज़ें ज़रूरी है. Or then the sky is also, even the sky is not limit. So I am just trying to now get into a little philosophical idea of the same. So we say in our Indian shastras there are three aspects, और तीन अंग जो अष्टांग है, लेकिन उसमें से तीन अंग जो है, जो मैं आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ. एक है योगा, which is about your body. Now the question will always say that अगर मुझे पढ़ना है तो मेरी बॉडी का क्या संबंध है? I have to sit down in a lecture hall, read books, at the most browse, the knowledge is there, I have to absorb, make sure that I graduate and pass my examination, that's it. What about my body? Why yoga? Why Ayurveda? All these are extremely related, and that is where I said that Western sciences will have a myopic और a limited view, एक संकुचित वे ऑफ लुकिंग एट थिंग्स है. हम बोलते हैं कि अगर मुझे आर्किटेक्चर या बिल्डिंग बनानी है तो मेरा शरीर भी शुद्ध होना चाहिए, मेरा मन भी शुद्ध होना चाहिए और मेरा स्किल भी उतना चाहिए, तो ही वो बन पाएगा. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दैट देयर इज समथिंग मोर देन एबल टू डू इट आउट देयर. कि मैं 7 साल से 30 साल से आर्किटेक्चर में काम कर रहा हूँ तो यूँ बड़ा प्लान बना लेता हूँ, ये तो स्किल हो गया. वो प्लान मैं किस लिए बना रहा हूँ, उसमें से क्या निकलेगा, और 50 साल अगर वो इमारत कहीं रहने वाली है तो लोगों का एक्सपीरियंस क्या होगा, इसके कारण मुझे उसमें बियॉन्ड माई स्किल्स कुछ डालना पड़ेगा. समथिंग, सम पार्ट ऑफ मी हैज़ टू गो इनसाइड दैट डिज़ाइन. Some part of my thought has to go, some part of my religious or sacred belief system have to go, some part of my larger belief system as a team and a society have to go inside that design. Otherwise there are few lines on the drawing and brick mortar. Brick mortar is non-living thing, let's understand. We are the only people who can make it living. Of course, I understand that some of you are not necessarily architectural aspiring students, but this will remain same, that whatever you do, you are trying to pour your heart into it. For that, you have to know where your heart is. For that, you will have to investigate inside yoga. Yoga is not asana, by the way. Asana is just bahyanga of yoga. Asana karna ha fakta bahyanga hai yoga cha. Yoga is actually internalization meditation. It has to be possible, so your Ayurveda, that is your lifestyle, has to support that. Ayurveda is not medicine again, it's a lifestyle. And then your vastu or your environment has to be also a reflection of your own self. 3 things coming together, you will be able to achieve something which is much beyond, or what we call in English as intangible. That intangible or cosmic that is there can be brought to every day only if we have a combination and belief system. And this is not individual, this is always together. Let's understand this. So this is just the trilogy that has to exist. So again I am using the word sadhana here. So the sadhana that individual has to go through defines the quality of his and her output, and the interface and relationship with the individuals define the nature of output as a group. These are both very important things to be. Then of course there is what I was talking about is parampara shiksha, that is, it is coming not only through book and common to everybody, but it is individual and one on one. आपके सबके अलग अलग टेक्स्ट बुक होते हैं क्या? कितने 11th में हो? सब एक ही टेक्स्ट बुक यूज़ करते हो? कौन से बोर्ड में आप हो? CB? तो अगर इंडिया में कहीं भी जाओ एक ही टेक्स्ट बुक, एक ही कंटेंट मिलेगा मुझे? थोड़ा थोड़ा अलग होगा, क्या अलग होगा? लैंग्वेज अलग होगी शायद, थोड़ा होना चाहिए या सब समान होना चाहिए? क्या लगता है आपको? होना चाहिए अलग अलग? या क्यों यार मैकडोनल्ड थ्योरी क्यों नहीं? कहीं पे जाओ एक ही टाइप मिलेगा, एक ही टेस्ट मिलेगी, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. व्हाई नॉट? क्योंकि आप यूनिफॉर्म में तो आए हुए हैं, लेकिन यूनिफॉर्म में बैठा हर एक कोई अलग अलग है ना. ये सेम तो नहीं है, यूनिफॉर्म डाल दिया तो सब सेम तो नहीं होंगे. नाउ our parampara shiksha accepted and identified this, and it was more of personalized learning and skill building, and not necessarily, of course there was a mass learning system also, but individual learning, especially of one aspect, was very important there. And currently it seems impossible, so the only way is that we have to chart our own way and understand to ourselves how we can go about it. So this is also talking about that if I am an engineer, I have an engineer friend out here and we have architects out here. We have generally a professional conceptual rivalry of a kind, almost adversaries of each other. We say, oh, engineers को क्या समझता है? And the engineers will generally say, कुछ भी करके लेके आते हैं, क्या समझता है उनको structures का? Because we have been taught like that. Now here we are saying that a person who is doing Vastu has to know poetry, has to know Jyotish, has to know Sanskrit language. सब कुछ आना चाहिए तो ही शायद वास्तु कला या वास्तु शास्त्र वो कर पाएगा उसकी प्रैक्टिस. बट ये सबको आना चाहिए, not only the top person, the bottommost person who is working also should be able to enjoy. A person, we are talking about RCC and steel, a person who pours concrete, will he be ever attached to the concrete that is poured? अरे कितना अच्छा है ये बीन बन गया, अभी मैंने concrete pour किया, ऐसे होगा उसका? आज का दिहाड़ी मिल गया, बात खत्म. कल दूसरे साइड पे वही करना है और कुछ नहीं करना है. लगाव कैसे होगा? अगर लगाव नहीं होगा तो वो वास्तव में कैसी प्रतीत होगी? संबंध सिर्फ वेजेस और काम का है, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं है ना. तो जब उससे आगे चले जाएंगे तो उसमें मज़ा आएगा. कितनों को पढ़ाई में बहुत मज़ा आता है? ऑनेस्ट आंसर प्लीज. ओके गुड. एट एज आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड आफ्टर, बट टिल 10th 11th आई वॉन्ट टू गो टू स्कूल नाउ, पढ़ना है मुझे. कितनों को ऑफ पीरियड मिल गया तो बहुत दुख होता है कि आज अरे वो पीरियड ऑफ हो गया, आई नहीं हमारी टीचर, अभी क्या करे? ऑनेस्ट ऑनेस्ट ऑनेस्ट. मुझे कभी नहीं लगा. लेट्स बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, ब्रूटली ऑनेस्ट विद ईच अदर. क्यों? क्योंकि वो काम है, वो कंपल्शन है, उसमें मज़ा नहीं है, उसमें इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, तो वो कभी मायना नहीं था. हमारी परंपरा शिक्षा वॉज एप्टीट्यूड, also enjoyment, because without enjoyment what will happen? Delight is the word that we have forgotten, isn't it? In Sanskrit we called it as ramyam, delight. It's not only aesthetics, it's also delight. You understand word delight? So of course the rituals. Now again, I was skeptical of putting this image as well as the title, because that will be seen as myopic. ना यार ये तो धर्म की बात कर रहा है, रिचुअल और पूजा की बात कर रहा है, क्या ताल्लुक है इसका? पूजा एंड रिचुअल डजंट मीन द एक्चुअल पूजा, इट ओनली मीन्स दैट यू हैव टू बी रिचुअलिस्टिक in your attitude, ritualistic in your work, and then everything happens. So it's a sense of order and beauty which you have to imbibe, which will happen only if you do something every day in a very, very systematic manner. And it doesn't mean that you have to sit in front of God and do something. Anything that you do, if you do in ritualistic and regular fashion, it will help. And of course the geometry, I will not go in that details just now, except if some of the architects here would like to, I can elaborate on that, but I'll just finish my first thing, and then if we need be and if time is available, we can talk about this. So this is the idea of Indian professionalism, and this is very important to understand, because that's not the same as our idea of professionalism as the word now we use it. We see it starts with the baseline. If you see, the two base are, one is integrity of self. One has to be a person who has that integrity, and not only parcel of a larger thing. Individually you have to be very strong and integrated person, then only you can contribute to a larger self. And there is an accountability to people and system, which is also part and parcel of understanding as inevitable aspect. ये ज़रूरी है, इसके बिना नहीं चलेगा, कि खुद की इंटीग्रिटी और दूसरों के प्रति भावना, ये दोनों ज़रूरी है. उसके साथ बनेगी what we call as shared philosophy and belief system, together that we believe in something. And if you have three of them together, the team works. Now all these temples and other things, I'll give you a little information now, that the entire system was possible because of not only hierarchy of giving work to the next level and next level. It was a common belief system that we are doing it for the society, for the God at that time, and for somebody which is higher than us. Was the belief system right from the smallest rung of the person, as we now call it, to the highest sthapati who used to oversee and make the overall design. And the sthapati also was a shilpi in itself, who could carve the same skill or better skill than the lowest rung of the sculptor, who actually used to work with stone and chisels. So he was equally capable. Maybe he will do the idol and the main murti, and these will do the, but they will graduate from a pillar to an idol. hierarchy was that. It was not saying that, oh, you only lift the material and leave it at that. And that's why if you see, and now when you go to these temples, look at the entablature and all the carvings, you will find that every column has a little variation, every sculpture has a little variation, where the person who was sculpting had all the freedom within the parameter and frame and the prescribed patterns. He had all the freedom, the geometry was defined, but what he wanted to carve or depict were more or less free to him, except a large where Ramayana or Mahabharata was completely put on strip. Every small sculpture would be different because there was freedom and a sense of ownership for the last person also. And that is what is missing now. That idea of team is what we have lost. We have idea of team which is a little Western again, is saying that I have a team, I will tell them what to do, they will do because they are skilled. I do not know how to do that and they do not know how to do this. But at that time everybody knew because it's the same parampara shiksha that everybody went through. And of course those who were more learned and had that kind of tradition, वो स्थपति बनते थे और बाकी कारागिर बनते थे. लेकिन कारागिर उतना ही महत्वपूर्ण था जितना स्थपति था. ये जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है. Okay, so this trilogy of a kind works as a teamwork, and there are many now who are attempting this in regular management training system also. There are many people who have adopted this and quite interestingly building up in the corporate training as well. Many of so this is what is a very interesting, again borrowed picture, not mine. This is Khidrapur near Kolhapur. So we say that being the best as personal excellence, team integrity, which means understanding the whole picture, constant improvement and geometric increase in capability. Now geometric is, you understand geometric versus arithmetic progression? A geometric progression is your Fibonacci series. 1, 2, have you heard this? 1, 2, 5, 8, it will increase multifolds. And arithmetic series is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it will add only in a very systematic. Geometric is progression which is much larger and much faster. So that is geometric increase in capability. So that's the team integrity that one had. So everyone who put that stone to one who conceived this overall picture were more or less knowledge system wise at the same level. Only thing, they assumed different hierarchy in one particular project and they built it and worked as a team together. But essentially they had the skills and the learning system which was more or less common. अब के ऐसा नहीं है, अगर अच्छा पढ़ाई नहीं की तो चलो लेबर बन जा, दिहाड़ी बन जा, और पढ़ाई किए तो चलो अकाउंट संभाल ले. Nothing wrong against it again, but saying that it is more universal in nature, ज़्यादा universal शिक्षण पद्धति थी वो. These are just to give you a little inputs. I just want to show you. This is one of the sthapati. Sthapati was the top rung of very equivalent to what one can call as architect. Architect is still a very smaller term as called as sthapati because he knew much more than what we know as architects of today. So this is Vaidyanatha Sthapati, is again from South India, lineage of the same lineage of Brihadeshwara temple. You can see that is 1906 to 1959. So he is not 16th century history book. He was as contemporary as Corbusier and as eloquent as Corbusier in his own world. Again, not to compare necessarily as ye behtar aur ye aisa, but this is not part of our syllabus. This is not even known to us, was not known to us 6 years before. So I am graduate of 30 years now. I did not know for 20-25 years that this kind of things exist. That's the irony, that's the problem. That's where we'll need to hit as maybe educators and academicians ever. So again a contemporary one. Again see the period that he worked with. Now if I had not written this 1905 to 1969, this would seem like as if something which can be put on as a pedestal and a puja can be done, almost like in guru. ये बहुत डेंजरस बात है. एक बार गुरु बना दिया तो उसकी सिर्फ पूजा करनी होती है और कुछ नहीं करना होता है ना. एक बार भगवान बना दिया तो हमारी जिम्मेदारी आधी खत्म हो जाती है कि अरे उसको तो भगवान में दे, वो जो कर सकते थे हम तो कर ही नहीं पाएंगे. एज सिंपल एज दैट. तो क्यों सोचना है? सो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट दिस इज डूएबल इवन टुडे. much more than what could have been done, because we are now all connected with internet. We can pass on information like blades of light, na? Which was impossible at my age when I graduated. Sir was asking about letters. When I went to my post graduation, I used to write letters to my friends. Now it seems almost like age of difference, that how could one, but I used to do that. This is again one of the latest drawings. Look at the proportioning system. Again, it's about religious, but the proportion system is immaculate, and I have seen them drawing and making the whole drawing without actually using scale. It's just geometric subdivisions and divisions, and they are so good at it that the entire temple drawing I have seen it with all the motifs drawn in flat 2.5 hours, start to end, exact proportions. Today's world, not world of some 100 years back. It is quite possible. So I just included this. So just to summarize very quickly, I hope I have this much time to go for 2 slides. Thank you. So this is very important to understand. If you can understand right at your age, very good. If you cannot, just remember few words of it. If you are still with me, are you? Okay, good. So I am just trying to compare the idea of what is called as mystical. Magical kya hai or rational kya hai. We all are very proud that we are rational people. We believe in rationale and logic is the only way to knowledge and to survive and to succeed. But let's understand, and the world has understood, that our idea of progress or logic is extremely linear in nature, which means it is single line and will end somewhere which is beyond our control. It is happening with our world and resources, that we are coming to an end and realization that this is not going to sustain, and then we are trying to turn our backs. No? While a mystical mind is always cyclic, it understands that all that is happening is going to be cyclic in nature, it's not linear anymore. If you are, it's a little difficult to understand, it's a little philosophical premise that I am entering into. तो अगर आपको समझ में नहीं आए और जानने की इच्छा हो तो हाथ ऊपर कीजिए, मैं बता सकता हूँ थोड़ी बहुत, लेकिन अगर नहीं तो हम बाद में भी बात कर सकते हैं अगर समय मिले तो. So rational mindset that I need evidence. This is experiment oriented learning. कि कितनों ने, आप में से कितनों ने इलेक्ट्रॉन्स और प्रोटॉन्स देखे हैं? इलेक्ट्रॉन्स और प्रोटॉन्स एवरीबडी नोज एटॉमिक, देखे नहीं है अभी तक? तो रहते हैं क्या? आर दे देयर इन रियलिटी? पढ़ा तो है, मैंने भी पढ़ा, लेकिन कैन आई से दैट इट्स रियलिटी? साइटोप्लाज्म, न्यूक्लियस, ये सब थोड़ा बायोलॉजिकल है, थोड़ा कभी तो माइक्रोस्कोप में देखा होगा, लेकिन ये प्रोटॉन्स, न्यूट्रॉन्स, इलेक्ट्रॉन्स, गॉड्स पार्टिकल कुछ देखा है कभी? एक्चुअल एक्सपीरियंस किया है कभी खुद ने? फिर भी विश्वास है? किसी ने कहीं पे कुछ किया होगा, अगर वो झूठ बोल रहा तो? So let's understand, experiment and conclusion is not the only way to knowledge. Experience is, because that is personal. Okay, and Indian system will always talk about this idea of experiencing and learning, embodying the knowledge and not only reading and believing. Okay, so let's understand this. So it is not mystical, and we say that वो mystical है, वो ध्यान करते हैं और कुछ समझ में आता है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. प्रमाण दिखाओ, प्रमाण किसी ने कहीं पे किया, क्या पता क्या किया. So let's understand that experimentation will have certain limitations, experience will be more fulfilled and rounded understanding of knowledge. So it is always no need of revision. We'll say that emotional, impulsive, and we impulsive or emotional, नहीं, emotions का क्या कोई knowledge में system में कोई भाग नहीं, but that is way we work ना. कोई आके धक्का मारता है तो पहले आप ये सोचते हो क्या, गाड़ी दो आ गए और धक्का मार दिया तो पहले कैसे, हाँ कोलिजन हो गया, द सम टोटल ऑफ मूवमेंट मस्ट बी इक्वल, ये सोचते हो क्या? पहले गाली निकलती है मुंह से. तो क्या नेचुरल है, इमोशंस या थियरी ऑफ मूवमेंट और थियरी ऑफ न्यूटन्स लॉज आर मोर नेचुरल? सो दे एग्जिस्ट, दे डू exist, but that's not what we do. No? So I am saying that they also are important, but your emotional involvement and your reading of the world is more important than that. Let's understand it very clearly. If I have not stepped back, I would have fallen. So emotions won't help. I should also have a little knowledge of reality, but that is also important aspect. So let's not discard this as superstition. Okay, it is not mystical, unknown. That is equally important. So what I feel, I respond, therefore exist, and it is important. The extraordinary, for example, the ordinary is real. Whatever is extraordinary is not real. God nahi hai, ye nahi hai, wo nahi hai. This is a belief system of rational mind. We say that, oh, extraordinary exists because we have seen it sometime happening with us, around us. And we have to acknowledge. We cannot discard it just because our rational brain cannot make sense out of it. Brain की एक limitations है, वो rational ही काम करेगा, उसके आगे जा नहीं पाएगा. तो उसके साथ knowledge system और भी आगे लेके जानी चाहिए, and that's what we are saying. So truth of science and technology of Europe or Western world is the only truth, and rest everything is blind faith. Is again जो prove नहीं किया है scientifically वो blind faith है, but वो feel होता है और वो पता है, तो इसको discard ना करें. Again, it doesn't demean. Let's understand. Let's not be pendulums here. Okay. लोलक या पेंडुलम नहीं है, एक बार यहाँ जाए, यहाँ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी, अभी अरे ये अच्छा लग रहा है तो इस साइड जाए. वी हैव टू स्ट्राइक अ बैलेंस. वी हैव टू बी टुगेदर, अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट दिस इज ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट, बट दिस कैनॉट बी डिस्कार्डेड. आवर इंट्यूशन, आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, आवर इमोशनल माइंड, आवर नॉलेज सिस्टम is equally important as what can be proved and put on paper as theorems and practices. Okay. So parameters must be clear, otherwise bus ambiguity. Ambiguity is also important. That is what actually gives germ to the new ideas. Creative world, if anybody is from design field, is like a struggle, that you're struggling for a long time because you're not hitting the right idea, and then after lots of struggle you hit the right idea. And it is exactly what scientists do. They are trying to propose a theory, experiment, 90% the theory becomes false, and 10%, 1% it becomes true. So they are doing the same exact thing as a creative mind does. The only thing is we creative is not documented, and that's why it's considered as mystical, while this is documented, and just because it is documented it is considered scientific. Success ratio is same, because that is also creation, this is also creation. So it's not either or choice, but it's a blending of two that we have to think together. And though I have not actually gone into depths of Vastu Shastra per se, I am trying to give an overview of understanding of how to look at any Shastra or any Shastra of our Indian culture with an open mind, and with also a very curious and inquisitive mind. Not accept it as it is. You have to be curious, you have to be inquisitive, you have to be scientific in nature, but don't discard it without proper judgment or proper investigation. That's the bottom line that I want to convey on this platform today. Thank you very much. Sir, all yours.
धन्यवाद सर. धन्यवाद सर. आपल्यापैकी काही प्रश्न असतील तर एक दोन प्रश्न घेऊयात.
मीच एवढे विचारलेत की त्यांनी त्यांना विचारायला जास्त ठेवले नाही आहेत. आय हॅव नॉट लेफ्ट एनी क्वेश्चन टू बी आस्क्ड. आय हॅव आस्क्ड क्वेश्चन्स माय सेल्फ.
कोणाला विचारायचं आहे काही? हां, बेस प्लीज.
Okay. First, I'll ask you a little counter question. Do you think yourself that they are important? What do you think? What is your feeling? No, why I'm asking you this question is because if I answer, just because I'm standing here and maybe 30 years older than you, you might just carry it as a belief system. I want to ask you, whether any of you, do you think, what do you think, should we just, I mean, they are such humongous large structures occupying such large area which is so vital. No? In cities also they are there, where the land rates are 10,000 a square foot and 20,000. Why not just erase them, build, demolish and build new so-called modern buildings there? What do you think? चलेगा? क्यों नहीं? यूज के तो है नहीं, हम तो कितने हम रोज मंदिर जाते हैं, नहीं जाते. तो ये मंदिर क्या सिर्फ फोटोग्राफ निकालने के लिए है, या कभी कभी टूरिज्म से थोड़ा पैसा मिलता है उसलिए है, या किस लिए है? ये क्यों रखे उनको? वैसे भी पुराने हैं, तोड़ देते हैं. एनी रिएक्शन? नहीं, तोड़ना नहीं चाहिए या तोड़ना चाहिए? नहीं चाहिए. क्यों यार? मेरे हिसाब से तो कोई उसका मायना नहीं है, तोड़ देते यार. वो पूर्वजों ने अच्छे बनाए थे, उनके लिए 2 मिनट तालियां बजाते हैं और बाद में तोड़ देते हैं, उसमें क्या है? So there is something beyond that touches you, doesn't it? So it's not only utility. There's some kind of delight. I run, or I am part of, as a founder member, one of the first sketching urban sketches in Pune. And we have realized that whenever we go, 99% of us sketch all that is old and very rarely something that is new. Again, not saying that new is bad. I am just saying that that means that it has something beyond the actual existence that touches us somewhere here. That's why we feel that. Now we are trying to say that how do we touch and understand that part that is dear to us, which actually is not spelt out in any of our texts. Utilitarian, इतना बड़ा FSI के साथ इतना बड़ा wall thickness, इतना सा carpet area मिलता है. Worst scenario ना? To our parameters, that's the worst thing to do, na? But we will still feel something about it. And it's not only us, everywhere across the world, heritage becomes that what you carry. And if that is not there, we will be baseless completely. And it may seem that it is a freedom from tradition, but believe me, if you are really want to try to disconnect with your traditions and your entire system of your ancestor, be it you are from Europe or from here or from America, you will start losing your integrity and identity very quickly. And they are part of our heritage, and that's what they give us, not necessarily because they were beautiful and very interesting structures, but they are beyond that. And that is what I am trying to say, that it's not only stone, mortar, it is much beyond that that touches us. Let's try and understand it. Okay. Anybody else? Anything? Though I was requested by sir that many architects are here, but because my presentation did not have that content, I did not touch into the technicalities, especially looking at grids. But if you have any questions about that, because many times many of my colleagues ask me, why go to Vastu Shastra? What does it have to you? My answer is very simple, that this is another type of design principle that I need to understand before I discard, if at all I discard. And more deeper I go into it, I realize that how holistic it is in every way. See, it's a very simple thing. If I say design grid, it looks quite interesting. If I say Padavinyasa, it seems derogatory and regressive to most of them. Unfortunately, it is nothing but a planning or design grid. It also talks about the parameters which are qualitative understanding of every position. Only thing is, they also could translate it into metaphors which are devatas, which we have lost touch with as metaphors, and that's why we take it as Asura, Sura and Maruta and other things which are of no relevance for us, but they are relevant because of the energy systems. It's a very simple thing that I always tell them, that if we believe that center of gravity exists as the physics teaches us. Have you all heard center of gravity? What is it? Can anybody define it? It's a point where the entire mass of that particular body is supposed to be concentrated. Isn't it absurd idea? इतने बड़े ब्लॉक का इतने सेंटर के एक पॉइंट पे मास कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड हुआ है, फिजिक्स है. Absurd idea, no? That's exactly what Brahmasthala is all about. It says center of mass in physics. We say center of energy as Brahmasthala. And physics also has proven that they are interchangeable, mass and energy. Only thing is, if I say Brahmasthala, it will be seen as, okay, yaar, kuch baat karte ho. But if I say that, have you heard of black box and candle experiment? That the candle will burn faster in a black box? Absorption ज़्यादा होता है energy का. What are we? Internal combustion machine? We eat food, convert into energy, use it in our day-to-day life. We are internal combustion machine, like your vehicle. So if I am surrounded with black, I am an internal combustion machine. Will I wear out faster? I will. Simple physics. But if I say it, अरे काला रंग अशुभ होता है, वहाँ आप जल्दी कुछ हो जाएगा आपके हेल्थ को, तो अरे ये तो ब्लाइंड फेथ है यार. Without questioning, without analyzing. My problem is only that. So I think we'll have to open our eyes and look at all these things. The geometry, sacred geometry is phenomenal. I've been studying it, trying to decipher it for the last couple of years. It's phenomenal. The idea of geometry itself, it's not simple grid system. It's a very overlays of various, and they are extremely well woven in metaphors which are extremely philosophical. So if you see that everything fits in so well, and it's a very difficult task to do. So it's interesting, is what I can say, at least to all the technical people and professionals, that let's look at it with an open mind and open eye, investigate it before discarding, if at all. I am sure we will not discard it ever, but still.